I'm Giles, and I'm actually pretty nervous because I've just seen my old European boss and global boss, and I've realized that there are a couple of slides in this presentation that they might recognize. Slightly embarrassing. I left Ogilvy at the end of last year to join a company called What Three Words because what we're doing is applying 21st century strategy to not kind of marketing and product creation, but kind of fundamental global infrastructure. So what we've done, what we do is, this is a beach in El Salvador, and we've given it a name, Nomad Slumping Survivor. I guess that's not particularly interesting in its own right, but what we've done is we've also named every other 3 meter by 3 meter square on the planet, and there's 57 trillion of them. And we've given them a 3-word address. And that's important because once you have an address, you can do things with it and do things with places. So for example, deliver stuff there. And again, that's not potentially massively interesting for El Tanco Beach in El Salvador, but when you think about all the rest of the places in the world that don't have a proper address, there are some pretty big implications. Because the world is really, really badly addressed. And I think in the Flamingo film at the beginning, you saw some shots of Delhi and some shots of Rio, and actually it's a bit of a maze. And when you look at it, 75% of the world has got inadequate, poor, or no addressing system whatsoever. They don't have postcodes and zip codes, and they can't use them like we do in the West for kind of address approximation. And even in kind of developed worlds, addressing systems are plagued with problems, and they cause lots of inefficiencies because they make a lot of guesswork. I mean, if you used Google Maps to get here today, it drops the pin right in the middle of the building, which is actually 20 meters away from where you want to, where the entrance is. So it becomes quite difficult. So a touch frustrating. It actually gets more fundamental in other parts of the world. So just kind of to take you back to kind of where the journey for the team started. There's a team of us, 7 of us. And the guy who came up with this idea, Chris, used to organize big music events around the world. And this sign was the absolute bane of his life, because the addressing infrastructure that we have today is not designed for the way that we use the internet and the way the internet works and the way that mobile phones work. They want a very clear, precise, single answer rather than multiple solutions. So this became really difficult and very inefficient. And trying to organize a party in Dubai, there's 1 street name and 3 villa numbers. So what people end up doing in places like that is giving their telephone number. So it's Giles, telephone number, Dubai. And then the courier company has to phone you up. So 30% of the costs of delivery are in the last mile because of issues like this. Classic example of sort of the addresses out in those sorts of places. The restaurant is opposite the Oman oil petrol pump station. And that's as much as you get. If any of you have kind of traveled in parts of the world where, in India or in Southeast Asia, you kind of recognize this thing. And then you get to places that are totally unmapped as well as unaddressed. So it's a shot of Rio. There are 11.5 million people who live in the favelas in Brazil, and as you can see, they've got no addressing infrastructure there at all. This is a place in Ghana where they've started doing an addressing system. Halfway through, they realized it was rubbish, and so they started another one. And then they did another one, and then they did another one. And so you've got 4 different addresses on the house, none of which anybody uses. And if you're trying to set up deliver aid or deliver goods, you're like, which actual system should I use? And none of them are particularly memorable or easy. So all Chris decided to do is, in his events company, was start to use the only thing that actually is that, or the best thing for describing a precise location, which is latitude and longitude string, 18 or so digits. But he was describing it over the telephone to a truck driver in Rome who transposed 2 of the digits. So he ended up vaguely in the right place, but in fact 2 miles down the road, and the wedding was ruined. But the guy's now an investor in the company, so it's all a happy ending in the end. So he thought, well, look, actually, we've got a pool of like 14 digits. That means to describe a precise location, you need 24 of them. There's a couple of other systems out there that try and describe location, and they've added the alphabet, and they go, well, if you've got 36 digits, you only require 10. They said, well, what happens if we just radically increase the pool of things that we can use? And then actually, the compound maths is quite cool. It basically shows that you can describe 64 trillion places with a word pool of 40,000 with only 3 words. So that's what we've done. We've created a new global addressing system that uses words. So gazed across light describes a particular 3-meter square on the planet. And what does that mean in kind of real terms? Well, it means that you can say it really easily. Finance collars captivates, less than 3 seconds versus, I'm not even going to attempt the one, 25 degrees, 9 minutes, 40. Yeah, I've kind of forgotten the beginning part by the time I've got halfway through. And importantly, words beat anything else for communication. So this was a study done in 1957 about our ability to remember digits and letters. Now, annoyingly, the guy didn't test 3 words, he tested 4. But I've taken some liberal extrapolation and said it's basically 100%. Your ability to remember 3 words, certainly in the short term, in your short-term memory. But again, anything else, it's just impossible. You cannot remember it. And words work everywhere. You can text them. If you've got kind of WhatsApp, you can drop a pin and send it to someone. But actually, you can text words, you can speak them, you can write them, you can send links. It kind of works. It works everywhere. It also means you can spot errors because you make a spelling mistake and it becomes obvious. What we've also done in our system is it's a non-hierarchical system. So it's not knife, fork, spoon is not next to knife, fork, plate because we want to distribute the things that are similar as far away as possible, so it's really obvious you've made a mistake. So if I'm in New York and I type in table, chair, lamp with my fat fingers and I get it wrong, the algorithm, what we've devised, says, did you actually mean table, chair, lamp? Because that's 5,000 miles away in Australia. Actually, you mean this one. We've also distributed the words in an interesting way. So the shorter, more commonly used words are placed in densely populated areas of the countries that speak that language. So it's just much easier to use. And we've got 8 languages at the moment. And we've named every 3 meter square. It's not a straight translation because otherwise it wouldn't, the algorithm wouldn't work well. But that's also important because it means untrained people can use the system. You don't need to be like a GIS, geospatial consultant to be able to work the system. Anybody can do it, and it empowers local communities. We're working on Swahili at the moment, and we're working on Arabic. And Arabic's a bit tough because you have exactly the same word, spelled exactly the same way, spoken in a different tone, and it means fundamentally different things. So our algorithm and word guys are going a little bit mad to try and fix that. What does that mean? Well, it means that you can meet people in places that you've arranged, whether that's a restaurant in Sweden or in places that don't have a kind of traditional address, like a beach. It means you can do deliveries in places that couldn't get deliveries before. But it also means that you can address water points in emerging markets. It means that you can help manage disease in Africa. It means you can address kind of hospitals. and schools. And again, you can do it in the local language, which means that they can be a kind of part of solving the problems that they face. Okay, so we've got this really cool idea. Talking a little bit about kind of how we're taking it, kind of how we're taking to market and the strategy behind that. I'm not going to take you through this complex chart, but this is the kind of bedrock and fundamental piece that we've actually blown up to A0 and stuck it on the wall in the office so everybody can kind of understand it. But broadly, it means, so we've got a very clear and understood purpose with everybody in the team, which is, the world would be better if everybody could easily talk about the location of every part of it. And the way that we're taking it to businesses is that we split it up into a number of different kind of requirements. So we're talking to people for whom this can improve customer experience, navigation apps, travel, tourism authorities, those guys. We're talking to people that this can fundamentally improve operational efficiencies, DHL, Deutsche Post, those kind of guys. And the middle group, business growth. E-commerce is rapidly increasing in places like Nigeria. It's the biggest growth in the world. They've got no addressing infrastructure. So we can help people grow into that market. And then the top one is improving lives. So NGOs, charities, governments, about implementing the system. And then around the edge, because we're a very small team, we're hitting all the suppliers. So the mapping technologies, the agencies, the consultancies who are selling in solutions to all of these people, because that allows us to scale. We have our own app, but it's not really about that. It's one of the strategies was let's be a cool and funky kind of Foursquare, but it's not about that. We're an ingredient. So we've worked hard to develop our coding libraries and our APIs to give to people so they can make stuff with us, and we don't even kind of need to know about it. We're quite big in the train spotting world. Apparently, they quite like using the system. It's not a case study I'm going to film, that's for sure. And the types of people that get this, we had a bit of a hard time at the beginning of when we came up with the idea, trying to sell into GIS professionals and techie guys who were like, "What do you mean you can't remember 16 digits? Are you crazy?" But the people who get this are the kind of ambitious innovators in companies, and they often live in the marketing departments or in the labs teams. And they're like, "God, this is like properly crazy, but yeah, it might just work." And Rory said some lovely stuff about us in the Spectator, which was great. But it's the people; we're defining our audience by attitude. And these are some of the things that we've been integrated in. NavMe actually was kind of just announced today. It's got a 20 million user base navigation app. You can specify, it's like a Waze alike, but better. And you can specify a 3-word location in that, and it will navigate you anywhere. But we're also being used in drone delivery systems, anti-poaching drones in South Africa, ground penetrating radar in South Africa to map mines and address them in the local language. And a bunch of others. We're also just working on this at the moment. If you want to roll it, I'll just kind of talk over the top. I'm actually jumping on a plane to Rio. Apologies for the quality of the film. It was shot by a guy on the ground, but we're working with him to address 8 favelas in Brazil. Because these guys are the emerging middle classes, right? They've got TVs, they've got disposable income, they've got jobs, but they've got, they're invisible to the state and they've got no infrastructure. So I'm going out with a flak vest to the favelas to help that. I guess we've got one more chart, which is just a little bit of a summary of. Have we got time to play that? Yep. Okay. So a little bit of a film about us now. Thanks.
We created What 3 Words because addressing around the world just isn't good enough for everyday needs. There are a lot of complex geographical systems that can talk about precise location, but it's totally unrealistic for people to walk around with long strings of latitudes and longitudes. We felt there was an opportunity to make something which was precise yet incredibly simple for everybody to use. The amount of times that you're asking which entrance, which exit, which stadium gate, which car park, there's so many examples of where addressing just doesn't work. So What 3 Words is like a big grid of the world. We've chopped the world up into 3-metre squares, so we've got 57 trillion 3-metre squares. And to each of those squares, we've assigned a sequence of 3 words from the dictionary. So it's as easy as saying table, lamp, spoon, and we've referred to some point in the world somewhere.
A 3-word address is much more memorable and much more accurate than, for example, a postcode or a street address. We have multiple languages available. We use 25,000 to 40,000 words for our word lists. It can be used with text input or voice input, and we have an inbuilt error detection mechanism. Our algorithm allows us to package it up into just 10 megabytes so it can fit on almost any device to be used offline without a data connection. So simply put, it's really easy to use.
We're seeing it integrated in taxi companies, navigation apps, logistics firms, travel guides. There are so many ways that being simpler and more precise about location can help all these businesses.
Unlike other geographical referencing systems, which are basically designed for technical use, the beauty of What 3 Words is designed for ordinary people to use. It only takes a few seconds to understand how it works, and then anyone can communicate using the 3 words. Another big advantage of What 3 Words is that it covers the whole of the globe, and that's why I was really intrigued when I first saw What 3 Words, because it was the first truly original system that I'd come across in my career.
So now everywhere has an address. It's the most beautiful places, the most fun places, the most critical, vital places. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Literally everywhere in the world now has a simple address.